Here's the truth of it, one that people often feel long before they can articulate. What keeps you in love with a narcissist is rarely love. Instead, it's the pursuit of relief from the very person who caused your pain. The narcissistic dynamic often operates like an emotional maze with no exit. You keep running because you remember the burst of warmth they once gave you, and because the coldness they deliver is now unbearable. But that's exactly the point. So narcissists, they keep you on edge. And it's not with change or threats. They use something far more effective: emotional withholding. They sense your need for closeness, your craving for reassurance, affection, acknowledgement, and they pull back just when you reach for it. Not obviously, not loudly. They disappear into emotional silence. A glance becomes distance. A message goes unanswered. The conversation turns vague and foggy. You start to doubt your worth, your appeal, your stability. You start to doubt yourself. And that's when the hook sinks deeper. And then they have the almost connection, where they never disappear completely. They give you almost enough to keep you alive, almost attentive, almost affectionate, almost committed, almost kind. And the emotional equivalent of holding a glass of water in front of somebody who's dying of thirst. They're just close enough to give you hope, but never enough for you to actually drink from it. And they weaponize tension as a tool. They keep you in this constant state of low-grade anxiety, hyper-attuned, hyper-vigilant, scanning their mood like a weather radar. You're not thinking clearly, you're thinking reactively. The world shrinks down to one question. How do I get back into their warmth? You feel addicted. But you're not addicted to them. You're addicted to the relief. And that's the psychological trap. The pain, relief, pain. That's the cycle. They create the pain, the withholding, minimizing, dismissing, unpredictability. And you feel desperate for relief, which they strategically deny. Then they offer you a small hit of approval, affection, or attention. And then your nervous system floods with the relief, and it feels like love. Then the cycle resets. It's not love, it's trauma bonding chemistry. The dopamine spikes tied to unpredictable rewards. And your heart learns to confuse relief with love. And some people wonder why it feels so powerful. And that's because the narcissist positions themselves as the source of your safety, the provider of your relief, the interrupter of your loneliness, the solution to the anxiety they created. They're the emotional equivalent of a firefighter who sets the fire, and then they rescue you from the flames. Then you thank them, you cling to them. You don't notice the gasoline on their hands. But here's the truth. You never needed their love. You just needed the pain to stop. And the mind will cling to whoever holds the off switch. So when you step out of the dynamic, when you start giving yourself the relief you once chased from them, it becomes painfully, brutally clear that you never loved them. You feared losing the only person who could temporarily soothe the wounds that they kept reopening. And that isn't love, that's captivity dressed as connection.